See you, sir. What's happening?
Good to see you too, Joe.
I watched episode 1, and I'm into episode 2 of your new season. Looks fantastic. I appreciate that he came on, and I thought it was going to be an interesting discussion, but it turned out he played fast and loose with the truth, and distorted quite a bit of information that were some key points that you had discussed, one of them being the amount of shipwrecks that were discovered. He greatly inflated the amount of shipwrecks that have been discovered. And then you released a video today that went over a lot of this stuff. And one of the things that went over is the oldest shipwreck that we are currently available. It's about 4,000 years old, 6,000?
The Dokos shipwreck.
But there's nothing left of the ship.
No.
And this is what's important. What he was trying to say was that it would be preserved by the cold water. That turns out to not be the truth at all.
And especially when you consider the possibility of ships having gone through a cataclysm.
Right.
It's not likely to, but there's a more central point than that, which really needed to be brought up by the archaeologist in this, which is that archaeology universally accepts that human beings were seafarers as much as 50,000 years ago, and I put the evidence on this into the video. It's not even in dispute. Like the island of Cyprus, the nearest Turkish coast is about 60 kilometers from there. It's always been surrounded by huge deeps, and yet there's evidence now that it was settled 14,000 years ago, certainly 14,000 to 12,500 years ago. It was settled, in other words, during the Ice Age. And these were large planned migrations. When you're going to migrate to an island, you can't just go 2 or 3 people by accident because you'll become extinct. And they reckon that populations of 1,000 or so were being brought across that water, across the ocean, across the Mediterranean Sea to Cyprus near the end of the last ice age. But not a single ship has survived to testify to that. Same with Australia. 50,000 years ago, human beings got there, and even at the lowest sea level, they would have had to cross about 90 kilometers of open water in large numbers. And again, no ships have been found to testify to that, yet archaeologists accept that they got there by ship.
And if we're finding the oldest ships that we currently are aware of, which is, as you said, about 6,000 years ago, if you tack on another 6,000 years of decay on top of that, what are the odds you're going to find anything?
I think the odds are very, very low.
Now, if we had that evidence and that information when we were confronting Flint, that would have been a very different conversation.
Totally.
But the arrogance in which he distributed that fake information was it's disturbing. It sucks when people just want to win and they don't want to get to the truth.
It does.
And the truth is it's very fascinating. I asked the question, there's a very distinct, noticeable difference between domestic seeds and seeds that are wild. And the difference is the seeds that are wild, they break off easier because it makes sense that it would help them prosper. It would help them be able to spread the seed if it broke off the plant easier. And so they can recognize that. And then when they start using large-scale agriculture, the seeds become more robust and stick to the to the plant, because it makes sense that it would, if you're going to harvest all of the plants and then take the seeds off of it, for the plant to prosper, you would want the seeds to be more robust. And I said, have they ever noticed a domesticated seed going back and having the characteristics of a wild seed? He said no. But that's not true.
That's
either.
not true either. No.
It's
not. It's not true. And the whole notion of the origins of agriculture, I think archaeologists got a great deal more work to do on that. Often, I'm misrepresented as saying that survivors of my supposed lost civilization would have brought crops with them. What they brought with them was the knowledge that crops can be domesticated. And it's precisely during the Younger Dryas that we see that shift from undomesticated to domesticated crops in the archaeological record. And what I'm suggesting is that these were people who had already conquered that problem. They'd already solved that problem. They knew it could be done. And they brought that knowledge with them and shared that knowledge with the people that they took refuge amongst. Because I don't think we're looking at a mass migration. I think we're looking at a few survivors who are taking refuge after a global cataclysm.